Did you know that more than 1 in 5 women in the US experience a mental health condition? Also, over 1 in 5 youth ages 13 through 18, either currently or at some point during their life, have had a serious, debilitating mental illness. The last fact I want to say today is 1 in 25 US adults live with a serious mental illness, such as schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, or major depression. So, why are we talking about mental health matters, period? Because your mental health plays a large part in our overall health and well being. This is why we're discussing on day 2 of our Women Health Seminar, Mental Health Matters. Thank you so much for joining me today. I want to say real quickly hello to you, Peggy Spence, Tangi Wilson. Good to have you joining today. Linda Sanders, Connie Farrington Watson. Good to have you joining as well. Yolanda Presswood. Hello, Karen Alford, Tanya Miles, Carolyn Banks, Samantha Youngblood, Theresa Thomas, Deborah Lindsay, Deborah Smith. Good to have all of you joining us on today. Keita Gibbs, welcome. Thank you for joining today. Dwana Green, we're praying for you and your family, and God bless you. Thank you for joining as well on today. And I know more people will continue to come in. So, yes, please share. Please go ahead and get this out. I know it's going to be a phenomenal session today. I want to say hello to you, Miss Edna Hell. Hello to you, Miss Myra Lee. Good to have you joining us. Jen Alford, thank you for joining us as well today. Mental health matters, period. Don't forget to ask any questions in the chat. We're going to start out with some slides and some information, but you're welcome to, as questions come to you, to share your questions in the chat, and we're going to go back and answer those questions. We're going to do as well as we can. Tamika Bell, thank you for joining today. Barbara Beanie, thank you for joining. Kenethia Jordan, Miss Minnie Lee, Cassandra Fields, thank you all so much for coming in. If you did not listen to yesterday's seminar, you need to go back. I said on that one that whether you are married, unmarried, thinking about getting married, whether you're divorced, it was so many nuggets. I heard one person say to me, it was jewel after jewel that was dropped. So I encourage you, even if you did tune in, go back and hear it, because the Bible says that faith comes by hearing and hearing by the word of God. Cheryl Johnson, thank you for coming in. Jasmine Green, blessings to you. Thank you for coming in. Beverly Thompson, thank you for coming. Linda Escott, thank you for joining today. Thank you all so much. And like I said, continue to share with your people in your circle, because they are going to be blessed. And don't forget to pay attention to phrases, pay attention to scriptures, pay attention to all of that, because at the end, we'll be giving away a $100 prize today. We had a $100 prize on yesterday, and we'll do it again on today. I just want to be a blessing in the lives of women. So you don't have to be a member of the church. You just have to be the first one to answer my question at the end. So pay attention to the things that our guest speaker is going to share. Pay attention to scriptures. Pay attention to those things, because somebody is going to be blessed today. Let me go ahead and introduce our speaker for today. She is Miss Shekinah Lee. Shekinah Lee is a member of New Life Interfaith Ministries. She holds a bachelor's degree from Miles College, and she has a master's degree in counseling from the University of Montevallo. So Shekinah Lee, hello to you and welcome to our show today. I'm so glad to have you. And I've already looked at some of the things that you're going to share today, so I know it's going to be a powerful session. So thank you so much for joining. I want you to hop right in, Shekinah. Just go ahead and start sharing with the ladies on today. And I always say, Shekinah, it might be some men on here, because the information is just information.
Right.
So everybody can use the information. So go ahead and greet our audience today, and let's hear what you have to share.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Pastor Jay. And hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. And also, thank you so much for opening your hearts and your minds to get educated on this very, very important topic. As Pastor Jay shared, the statistics speak for themselves. I'm very, very excited about getting to this conversation today with you guys. So let's get started.
Let's get going.
Okay, so overall, you guys, again, mental health matters, period. So we want to cover these topics today so we can get a better understanding of how we can show up for ourselves, for our family members, and our loved ones. Okay. The importance of mental health is what we'll talk about first, addressing the stigma, overcoming shame and guilt, practicing self care, using our coping strategies, understanding the relationship between faith and mental health, and then we'll make room to share some resources and answer some questions. Can everyone see this okay?
Well, no, we need you to turn it back on. I see our production team is saying turn it back on, share the screen again. So you need to go back to whatever it is, wherever you were.
Okay. Are we back?
Yes, I think so.
Perfect.
I see it popping up. There we go.
Okay, perfect. I'm sorry about that, guys. Okay, so again, the topics we'll be discussing is the importance of mental health, addressing the stigma, overcoming shame and guilt, practicing self-care, using our coping strategies, understanding the relationship between faith and mental health, and then going over some resources and answering any questions that some of you all may have. Okay, let's get started. So first, again, the importance of mental health, right? Mental health is just as important as our physical health, and we have to prioritize it. Just like Pastor Jay shared, Black women are disproportionately impacted by mental health concerns. In fact, the American Psychological Association reports that Black women are more likely than any other group to report experiencing significant symptoms of depression. On top of that, you all, that statistic of 1 in 5, there's more than that. Just think about how many people are just on this call. 1 in 5 people deal with or are associated in some way with mental health or experiencing mental health disorders. Not to mention those of us that might be experiencing things like caregiver fatigue because we're taking care of someone that might be managing a mental health disorder. Us who might have experienced different traumas or might have just dealt with certain things over our life and trying to figure out how to overcome those things. It's 1 in 5 of us. So that means that even if we're not currently experiencing it right now, I'm guaranteeing you that there's somebody next to us. And if we want to show up and help our community prosper, we are going to have to make sure that we maintain knowledge of this information. Okay, Hosea 5:4-6 tells us that it's because of lack of knowledge that people perish. When we don't have what we need knowledge wise, that's the thing that stands in the gap of us and the better versions of ourselves, the prosperous versions of ourselves, the blessed versions of ourselves. It's going to start with us understanding the total person. Okay. And that's why this is so important. So, number one, another reason why this conversation is so important is we have to start addressing the stigma. When we talk about mental health and those mental health concerns, they're often stigmatized and seen as a weakness. Okay. We have to get rid of that idea. It's important for all of us to talk about it so that we can give people permission to get the support that they need. Approaching your mental health concerns with a sense of curiosity instead of any judgment so that you can make sure that you're supporting everyone connected to you. And as we continue these conversations just like these, that's how that's going to happen. That's how we address the stigma. Are you guys still tracking with me?
We are.
All right. Overcoming shame and guilt. Okay. So we can't talk about the stigma without addressing and overcoming shame and guilt. This is normalizing those mental health conversations. That's how we combat that. There's so much shame attached to, I don't want to talk about this because somebody might think that I'm crazy. Or I don't want to talk about this because that needs to stay within our family. That's our family business. Or I don't want to talk about this situation because I don't know that anyone else will understand me. Remember that number 1 in 5. If you don't remember anything else, it's that 1 in 5. There's someone else next to you who's experiencing the same thing. And if it's not you, it's somebody, if it's not just you directly, you might encounter somebody later on. We want to make sure that we are truly impacting others and being light for others. And that's going to require us removing that stigma.
You
So
know,
no,
Shekinah,
mhm.
I was gonna interject because several I can remember the 2 years, but in 1993 through 1995, there were 2 years. That's 2 years of my life that I will never forget because I had to deal with mental health. I had to deal with what the enemy was saying to me, and one of the biggest things that I dealt with was the shame and
Yeah,
the guilt, because here I always thought of myself as, like, kind of put together and had my head on straight. And I was, I felt good about myself. Let me say it this way. Although I'd had some traumatic experiences in my life, I felt like I had it together.
Yeah.
And then the thing that got to me was the enemy began telling me that, I was not going to go to heaven, that I was not born again, even though I had lived as a believer for years. And then he just began showing me all of my past and every mistake I had made, and just, reminding me of so many things in my life. Then I began questioning whether or not I was really born again. And
Yeah.
the thought of going to hell just took over my mind. And from that, it went into illness in my body. And then, so for 2 years, I was plagued with that. And for years, I would never share what I had gone through. But one year, we had a conference, and I told Pastor, he asked me to minister, and I told him that God had released in me to share my personal testimony about what I had gone through. And my biggest thing with that was shame and guilt. And I had to get over that. But that night when I ministered, so many women either called me or came up to me later on and shared with me that they were experiencing the same kind of thing, but it was that stigma that
Yeah.
they didn't want anybody to know that, yes, Judith Matthews, yes, a degreed person, yes, a person who's married to a pastor, yes, all of those things. But I still dealt with that mental issue, and then the depression that goes with that. That's, I think it's the trauma of the stigma. And it's like
Yeah.
you just go through so much and you feel like you're out there by yourself, but you're not.
Right.
1 in 5 women have experiences. So we want to get that to you today. If you're going through some things, and if you've had those traumatic experiences, share your story with others so that you can help set them free. And I can tell you the number of times I've shared with women from that time, and the difference it's made in their life. So thank you for talking about the stigma of it. I think that's a big thing.
Absolutely. And I think the bigger thing we have to remember is that our in our testimony, in our when we're vocal, it gives other people permission to do what they need to do to free themselves. It gives
Right.
power, and it takes away the enemy's power by making you think that you have to
Exactly.
be silent about that experience. There's so much power in that testimony and the purpose of that testimony. Think about all those people that just got impacted from just yours. So if all of us
Right.
start doing it, all of us start putting that fear aside and stepping past that fear and pushing towards the confidence that God gives us as it relates to these particular ailments, we'll get to where we need to be as far as like transforming our community, really. So
Right.
thank you so much, Pastor Jay, for taking that step. And I hope it encourages others to do that same exact thing. Um,
Yes.
at the end of the day, stigma is just that, a stigma. Our purpose is more powerful than that. Our
Right.
words are more powerful than that. And the people and the aftermath of this is more powerful than that. I think
Exactly.
sometimes we forget. I know that probably while you were in the middle of that experience, you could not have imagined the ripple effect of
Exactly.
being able to share that.
Exactly. Well, thank you.
Absolutely. So I think that again, to Pastor Jay's point, and overcoming that shame and guilt, you all, if it's not just about you, it's never just about you.
Mhm.
And there's so much power and purpose on the other side of those things. So when you decide to normalize a mental health conversation, okay, number one, these are the steps. You normalize that mental health conversation. Okay, you start having those. If you and loved ones, you share that you feel a little off lately. You share that you've been experiencing some self doubt, and that inner critic is trying to tear down who you know you built yourself up in, right? Do you seek support? And support looks like your church members. Support looks like family and friends. And then support also looks like a mental health professional, because there is some things that need to be attached together. The spiritual and the natural have to go together. As Ms. Bell often says, the spiritual and the natural, they have to go together. So we have to make sure that we're taking that spiritual piece and that natural piece, seeking out professional help when necessary, practicing self compassion. I can't say this enough. That unconditional acceptance and love that you have for yourself, and that unconditional acceptance and love that you have for even the current situation you're in, can help you get to a place of true healing. But you have to give yourself some grace first. If you're not understanding that what you're experiencing is a natural thing, loving yourself through that, while you get the extra support, while you seek out your help, while you get the bases you need spiritually to build your spiritual man up to help you fight this battle, it's not going to be as easy. You got to give yourself grace. Okay, change the negative self-talk. Whatever you're telling yourself negatively, you start changing those thoughts, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. Educating yourself and starting small. What is the first step you can take to get yourself to a place where you feel a lot more comfortable with yourself, a lot more comfortable with who you are, and a lot more comfortable with addressing what you might be currently experiencing? Remember, there's power in you talking and you sharing what it is that you're going through. So my favorite thing of all is self-care. I am a self-care queen, okay? So practicing self-care is one of the biggest parts of our mental health journey. And the reason why it is because it allows you to do things to take inventory. How can we, when we're talking about loving ourselves and loving ourselves unconditionally, how can we do that if we're not spending any time with ourselves, right? How can we do that if we're not seeing, well, what do I like? What do I not like? What are the things that I'm proud of myself for? What are the things that I'm really, really good at? What are the things that I need to, my areas of opportunity, stuff I need to work on some more? All that stuff comes from self-care. Now we talk about self-care a lot in media, like going to go to the spa and getting my nails done and my hair done, things like that. That's all well and good. That's great. But what you really want to do is you want to allow yourself the opportunity to take inventory again. That can look like doing journaling, your meditation, going on walks by yourself, reading your favorite book, watching your favorite movie. That can look like really making a list. What are the things, my wins this week? What are the things I've done really well this week? What are the things I need to improve? Who are the people that I can count on? Spending quality time with other people. All those things fall underneath that umbrella of self-care. So if we want to get ourselves to a point where we can start to grow in that way for our mental health, it all starts with self-care. It all starts with how we're taking care of ourselves.
That's good.
So I want to challenge you too with this as well, you guys. See what 15, if you can just give me 15 minutes this week, the next week, and let me know how it goes. But give yourself 15 minutes of just time with yourself, whether that be reading a book, whether that be going outside to walk for a second, sitting on the patio for a minute, listening to your favorite playlist, whatever it might be. But give yourself just 15 minutes, a 15-minute pocket of time of spending time with you. And once you start to do that more consistently, we'll start to take inventory of the things that we need and how we can start to always show up for ourselves. Okay, and the next thing I want to talk about, which we talked about a little bit before, is coping strategies. So, along with that self care piece, is the coping strategies piece. Everything is not always rainbows and sunshine, and we know this. There are some days that get rough. All right, we feel a lot more stressed than usual, maybe feeling a little anxious. We might be noticing some symptoms of depression. We might be noticing that we need, our body is starting to get a lot more fatigued, right? You need to identify for yourself what are your coping strategies, almost like an emergency plan or a self-care plan or safety plan for yourself that says, when these type of things happen to me, I do this. For perfect example, when you're at work, right, or you come to wherever it is, your place of business, and you have a moment that feels overwhelming, or you might have a very stressful day, there should be, or we would hope that you would have an opportunity for yourself to just get yourself together, whatever that means. If that means you need to decompress in the office for a second, have a seat. If you need to go have lunch by yourself for a moment, sit outside, get some vitamin D going. If you need to do some breathing exercises, taking 4 deep breaths, guided meditations, 5-minute guided meditations on YouTube are excellent for your work, like your work week or during the work day when you can't really escape the office. You kind of just need that 5 minutes to decompress. There's plenty of guided meditations on YouTube to be able to do that. Sitting with your prayer journal for a second, reviewing your devotionals for the day, all these things can help you develop different coping strategies for your different circumstances. And what will happen is, instead of you being reactive to situations when they show up, because you have your coping strategies in place, you can be proactive. You
That's
already
so
know what to do.
good.
Yeah, you can. You already know what to do. You already have it in place. One of my favorite ones is, I'm all over the place, and I have to remind myself to just sit down for a second, read, check in with myself. Did I eat? Did I drink enough water? So I've set alarms on my phone during my lunch break or during that lunch time that'll remind me of, like, did you check in? How are you doing? How do you feel? And just that simple question, how am I feeling today, can be transformative for the rest of the day.
Wow.
So these different things are things you want to set in place for yourself, again, to be proactive instead of reactive to the ups and downs of life.
Hmm. I agree.
Okay, this one is probably the most important one, and this is why I love spaces like these, because I get to talk about the real relationship between our faith and our mental health. One is not separate from the other, you guys. I'm sorry, but it's not. You can pray and also go to therapy. You can also take care of your mental health, and you do what you need to do for your devotionals and your relationship with God. God wants you whole. God wants you whole. God wants you whole. And that means whole in every part, from the top of your head to the sole of your feet. And what that looks like is you maintaining that relationship with yourself to get you to that point, and asking for help when necessary. If
Hmm.
there's something going on with you, if you have an ailment in your ankle, yeah, we speak healing over it, but then we go to the doctor to see what's going on, correct? If
Hmm.
we have an ailment, we need, over time you might need to get some extra glasses or something. Yes, we speak healing and perfect vision, but when you need to go to the optometrist, you go. The same exact thing happens when it comes down to our mental health. You put that faith, you say all things are working for my good, but then you also schedule your session that you need to with your therapist to figure out what that process is supposed to look like to get to your good. See what I'm
Hmm.
saying? We want to
Hmm.
put all of those things together. So lean on your faith as a source of foundation. We have an advantage against over a lot of these. We talk about that 1 in 5, right? But the advantage that we have in that 1 in 5 is the ability to stand on our faith, to
That's
lean
good.
into those scriptures, to remind ourselves what God tells us about ourselves. There's a thing that I love to reference in mental health, and it's called cognitive distortions, and it's exactly that. It's distorted thinking, right? The beauty that we have around those distorted thoughts, or the thing that we have to combat those distorted thoughts, are the things that God has already said about us. So when
Right.
the negative self-talk starts to show up, when the intrusive thoughts start to show up, I can say my scriptures, because it's not just my word at this point, it's
Right.
God's too. Those things together give us the power that we need to get to our next step, right?
Yes. That's good.
So lastly, these are a few resources. These are different resources in the Birmingham area and beyond that you all can tap into. And I believe we may be able to get you access to these after this has aired, or later on this afternoon, or when we do our recap. But these are just like different websites. The Crisis Center is the most important one, though. I want to make sure I cover this one. It's number 2 on here, but the Crisis Center. This is their website, but it is a 24-hour crisis line. The hotline number is 988. And crisis does not have to just be any ideas around suicide or suicidal ideations or self-harm. It can also be if you're having a very intense day, you just had a traumatic experience, you feel overwhelmed, you don't have anyone to talk to. 988. Put it in your phones, write it down, share it with a friend. 988. This is an amazing resource. It's a game changer. It used to be that we had to call this long number. You don't anymore. And this is anywhere you are. It's not just specific to Alabama. This is Georgia. This is Florida, to California, wherever you are. 988, and you can get the support that you need.
Well, that's good, Shekinah. That was a lot of information for us. Thank you so much. Listen, I know as Shekinah talked about the stigma, and some of you may not even want to ask questions, but I wish you would be bold enough to ask questions in the chat. We won't think those questions are about you personally, but let's go ahead and start with our questions, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. I'll go ahead and start first, Shekinah. How can we differentiate between normal stress and anxiety when it's time to seek professional help? How do you differentiate between normal stress and anxiety
So
versus needing help?
that's an excellent question. So when we're talking about, there's a twofold part to this. So the one thing is the proactive instead of reactive thing. I think that's an ongoing theme with us here today. You want to remember that if you already have a mental health professional that you're partnered with, right? It's not going to be just up to you to maintain when it's time for you to get some extra support and what that
Mhm.
might look like for you. If I'm seeing my therapist at least once a month or every 2 weeks, right? I've developed a relationship with someone, a professional who can see these signs in addition to me, to help me get to the place where I need to be, to get leveled out, get my mental health where it needs to be. So that's something that you want to kind of already have in place. Have a relationship with someone in that way. If you do not have that in place yet, the first step you want to do, or the thing you want to remember, is it interrupting my day to day? When we talk about disorders and we talk about the DSM-5, one of the main things you want to think about is it interrupting my day-to-day functions? Every day when I wake up, when I go to sleep, when I go to work, is it interrupting how I'm able to function? And if you find that you can't get out of bed, if you're finding that you can't manage your regular work day, if you're finding that you can't show up for your family and loved ones, those are telltale signs that it might be time to get some extra support and some extra help. But I'm telling you, it's better be proactive. Have it already in place. Just like you got your physician, your dentist, your optometrist, already have a therapist on ready, so that when those circumstances come, you'll have someone that's already familiar with you that can help you in the way that you need.
I want to ask you a question, Shekinah. I've always heard that, I want to kind of balance just one part to this. A lot of times when you start with therapy sessions and things like that, people are quick to put you on some type of medication. So
Mhm.
now, what's your thought on medication? I'll save my thought right now, but what's your thought on medication?
So thank you so much for that. So here's the thing. I think there's something that needs to be said about the difference of who you're seeking out. Psychiatrists prescribe medication, right? That's a psychiatrist role. Your psychologist deals with the neurological function of your brain. Then you have a therapist or a counselor. They do not prescribe medication.
Wonderful.
They do not. So when you're seeking out extra support, you need to go ahead and get someone who, if you're looking, you need to know what you're looking for, first of all. If medication is not for you, there's plenty of resources out here that don't require you to take any type of medication. Majority of the time, when we're talking about anxiety, especially, that's something that can be managed with basic self-care routines, and you getting a handle on what it is that are causing your stress, that are your stressors. Get that in order, you're good to go. No medication necessary. Now, there are some people who do require medication, and that's over time. But even then, you're still probably going to see a psychiatrist first, and then still see your therapist to manage what it looks like to live a new life with your disorder.
Yeah, I just wanted to caution people as it relates to that part. I like the fact of you're showing the difference between a counselor and a psychiatrist. So
Mhm.
I would encourage people to first seek out, we start with prayer. That's number one. And then seek counseling. And for those of you who are members of New Life or you're members of Calvary Resurrection Christian Church, we have a counseling staff. And so that's freely available for you and to you. So if you need counseling, you should be contacting the office, and we have those that are certified counselors that can assist you with that. And then the thing about that is you're getting godly wisdom and godly counsel. So I think that's important, and we should not be ashamed to receive counseling. But when it comes to medication, I just think you need to pray about what is best for you in that situation, because many times they may tell you, you're going to take this for 30 days, you're going to take this for 60 days, but then something happens in that process and you become dependent on it, and you may not have needed to go down that road. There
Right,
are people who need that. And I'm
right,
saying, what you need, but
right,
I just caution people on doing, that part too quickly, if I
right.
can say it that way. You want to seek the wisdom of God and even the wisdom of a counselor, that can maybe share with you the pros and cons of that part. I saw a question, and it says, please address using a Christian counselor versus a secular one.
Ooh, I love that question. So here is the at the basis, you want to think about it this way. Think about what you need, just like what you said, Pastor Jay. Think about what you need. I would even advise, before you start looking for a therapist, just write a list of what it is that you need and the things you want to work on, right? Then while you're looking for your therapist, and that might be via Psychology Today, or referrals from other people that you know might also be seeing a therapist, you want to ask them, do they specialize in those things that you're asking about?
Hmm.
So, for example, if the struggle right now is work-life balance, you want to talk to someone that specializes in that area. If you're trying to see how to support somebody that you might be having that's living with a chronic illness, or you might want to know how to support someone that's living with a mental health disorder, right? So that's that caregiver fatigue. That's all of
Hmm.
that process. So I need to talk to somebody that specializes in that. So you want to kind of have your list together with that first before you seek one out. For me personally, little self-disclosure, my therapist is can speak the word just like I speak it, understand scripture just like I speak it. And the reason why is because when it comes to my healing process, that's what I need. I need somebody that
Hmm.
understands that part of me. And so when you're going to go seek out your support, you need to partner with people who understand that part of you. So that is to me the difference. As far as clinically wise, there's no true difference clinically, but when you're talking about your full experience, that healing process, you got to know what you need.
Okay, we've got another question. Is dementia linked to mental illness?
It can be, but sometimes there's a lot of ramification, different variations of that. And honestly, that is not within my scope to be able to speak fully to. But what I can say is that there are some studies that say that it is, but there's also genetics that play a part in that as well. I would, if I were you, seek out a neurologist or a psychiatrist or a psychologist that might be able to answer those questions further for you.
Okay, and then this one was kind of linked to dementia too. What can you do to help with dementia at home?
I would again
Dementia.
Yeah, I would again. That's outside of my scope, but I will say this: caregiver fatigue is a thing. If you happen to be the caregiver for someone that is living with dementia, you need to seek out support for yourself as it relates to that, as well as different support groups with different methods and practices that might be best to fit, and then also seeking out professional support in that way as well. And professional support would look like, again, seeking out a neurologist, a psychiatrist, a psychologist that can help you more with a more streamlined focus on that area.
Okay, we've got another question. What role does mental health play as it relates to persons who struggle with bereavement?
That's a great question. There are so many different theories when it comes to grief, but I am going to say this: grief is not linear in any way, right? And so you have to give yourself grace while managing that. And when I say it's not linear, just because it happened 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, doesn't mean you're supposed to be completely over it. And I think that you should give yourself the patience to navigate what that looks like for you and what the grieving process looks like for you. When it comes down to having this conversation again around mental health, if we don't address it, what it turns into is it shows up in other ways. That can show up in it as post-traumatic stress disorder because we never navigated maybe some type of traumatic event that led to someone's death or us experiencing something secondhand. We have to make sure that we're providing the support that we need through the whole process of that. We don't know what the end result might be if we don't. So because of that fact, if you're noticing that you went through some type of major loss, get some support on the front end, see what that looks like, and then be partnered with someone already to help you navigate what that's going to look like for you. It's different for everyone. There's no right or wrong way to grieve. There's no right or wrong. There's no timeline on it or anything like that. So give yourself that grace while you manage that process. And
Yeah.
I think,
Go ahead.
and in addition to that, make sure you're partnering with somebody to help you manage that process. Don't do that by yourself. Do not go
Right.
it alone.
I agree. I saw someone that asked a question. What are the specialties of the church's counselors and can they address caregiver fatigue? Um, and I want to answer that and say yes, they can, and that we have certified, we have licensed counselors, so they are able to address your various needs. Our counseling teams work together on both campuses. So, say for instance, you're at New Life and someone specializes in an area, or they feel like someone else will be better able to assist you, they can, cross reference or cross refer you. And I believe out of the counseling team that we have, there is someone that would be able to assist you in all of the areas. We have people that serve as counselors every day. That's their profession. That's what they do. So we don't just have people that spend time in the presence of God and have prayed and they're going to advise you. We do have those who are certified counselors as well as spend time on their knees in prayer. So I do believe that they would be able to assist you with that. This other question said, what are your thoughts on young children, 4 to 5 years old, taking medication to manage behavioral issues?
I think that's within the rights of the parent and the child and their whoever their professionals are that have allowed them to do that space. I can't really speak to the decisions that anyone makes as it relates to that. But again, prayer, contact, and making sure that you're in a relationship with other professionals that are helping guiding you to that decision that you're making. And that's a decision. If they came to that decision, I'm sure it was one that was well informed.
Okay. Yeah. And there again, I still say that seek the wisdom of God when it comes to medication. We work in preschool. We work with children kindergarten through fifth grade in our school. I have seen where I definitely believe that there are children, especially when you've got people that are not, that don't have a relationship with God, that are not regularly attending church. So it's not that they're standing on faith or anything like that. It's really more about the stigma. But you have to address that. I believe that as we've been seeing in our world today, so much happening in the world today, it's the result of mental illness or mental disorder, and it has not been properly addressed. When they start going back and talking about the stories, the child had symptoms or showed signs of some type of mental disorder at young ages. They went through high school, they went through college, they were educated, they did all these things, but no one ever truly addressed the mental disorder. And as a result, they kind of lose it one day. They follow the pattern of the mind, and then we have a whole different situation. So it does need to be addressed. It does need to be addressed in young children, age 3, 4, 5, whatever the age is. You gotta address it. And I believe prayer. I would be wrong if I'd sit here and say that prayer does not work. I believe that prayer works. I believe that even every phase of the medical industry is, I believe it's a part of God and the things that He's put here for us. It's the resources, as you mentioned before. I believe we all work together in this. There are Christian doctors, there are Christian psychologists and psychiatrists. So I think it's all of us working together in that. Now, we had another question. It said, is the primary care provider the one to make referrals? Should you refer to your primary care provider when it comes to psychologists, psychiatrists, and all the other iatrists that we mentioned?
When it's coming to anything related to having to do any type of medication, or if you're seeking out, that I would go with your primary care physician first, and they can make you referral to not only who but what too, as far as like what it is that you may need to, or if that's something that you actually need. But yeah, seek support from your primary care physician for anything regarding medication. But if you're looking for a counselor or a therapist, there's all types of directories that exist. Like for example, Psychology Today, where you can go on, kind of type in what you need, see if you can see things of like if they take your insurance, what scale do they operate as far as like cost per session. They might have a website on there to get to know who it is that is who you might be seeing, get to know them a little bit better, what their specialties are, all that stuff when it comes down to seeing a counselor or a therapist.
Okay. And someone also asked if we could speak to the legal confidentiality imposed on certified therapists and the mental health professionals. So you want to talk about that, Shekinah?
Great. HIPAA. Okay. We can't, when it comes down to us in a one-on-one session, it is just that one-on-one, and there's all type of protections in place as it relates to confidentiality. When you're seeing a therapist, the first thing that they should do is go over that information with you. And it is, you get an understanding of what the session is supposed to look like, an understanding of what your rights are as it relates to the session, and even a board that you can call if they're doing something they're not supposed to be doing. You see what I'm saying? All that information is presented to you at the time of your first appointment during intake. So yeah, we're under the same laws that your doctor is under as it relates to HIPAA. We're not allowed to share any of your information. Confidentiality is something we take very, very seriously, and it's a safe space for you.
Mhm. And I want to say, as it relates to the ministries, we abide by the same. It's a one-on-one session, and you will not hear your information again. You just won't. Anyone that does that will not be on our counseling team. So I want to give you assurance on behalf of New Life and CRCC that yes, we do abide by confidentiality. We must. We have to. So I see somebody type huge HIPAA violation. So we don't want to deal with any type of lawsuits or anything like that. So we're going to protect your confidentiality. This is another question. Is it better to find a mental health professional that knows your culture or background, or does that make it easier to relate?
I find that absolutely it does, but then I also find that some of my clients don't look anything like me, sound anything like me, have no similar background at all. So it's really just per person. And I like to make it as simple as like a shoe, right? When you go to the store, you might have an idea of what type of shoe you want and things like that. You might try it on and see, not really, it's kind of hurt my ankle a little bit or something like that. So then you put it down, you might get another pair of shoes. And that's the same thing when it comes down to your therapist or your counselor. That same light as that space is as light as it should be when it comes to selecting one. It's not, you don't have to, just because this one doesn't work out doesn't mean you have to throw the whole thing away. Try another one, but it really is what fits best for you, what works best for you.
Okay. This question says, do the sessions become a part of your medical records?
So that is only if there's some type of like disorder or medication that has to go, and even then there's a lot of stipulations around that. And then oftentimes your sessions are confidential to a point even they can't you we can't share them unless they're subpoenaed by a judge. So unless there's some type of criminal act of you doing harm to yourself or someone else, that those are everything is confidential. And even then, when you see a primary care physician, that's something that they have to request. You have to give right of information over for them to even see any of that, any of those things.
Okay, this is a good question. How can we support a friend or loved one who is struggling with mental health challenges? How can I as a friend support someone? And sometimes you may see it when they don't see it.
Mm-hmm,
You
mm-hmm,
may
mm-hmm.
recognize the symptoms and signs before they do. So how can you support someone with a mental health challenge?
That's an awesome question. I'm going to put it into three spaces. The first one is being aware, right? Being aware, knowing getting to know people, being aware of if you're having questions about that, keep yourself knowledgeable about certain things, coming to conversations like these so you can keep yourself up to date about what might be going on or what resources are available. So that's the first thing, bringing a certain level of awareness to yourself. The second thing is appear with curiosity, like not trying to judge, not trying to impose what you think they should do or how you think something should go or not anything like that. Just approach it with a curiosity. I wonder why you decided to do this certain thing, or I wonder what it is that they may be experiencing, right?
Mhm.
And then lastly is educate. ACE. ACE is the acronym. But the last thing is educate. If you once you kind of get something or you get a better understanding of something, educate someone else on how you might be feeling, and then be willing to get educated yourself on how they are feeling. You don't want to again assume anything. You don't want to place any type of judgment about anything. But the more we know, the better, right? And the only way we're going to get there is if we approach that situation with true curiosity, and then once you kind of gather that information, if they say to you, yeah, I think there might be something going on, or yeah, I might be experiencing something, or if they've shared what their diagnosis is with you, you all together can watch videos. There's all type of information on YouTube, credible information on YouTube that'll allow you to get a better understanding of what somebody might be experiencing, moving yourself into a space to be open to see what it is, how they navigate what that looks like. Because everybody's healing phase and process of dealing with mental health is different. So like be curious, attach yourself to them in the sense of like, how can I support you? What does support look like? And really just asking them, how can I support you? What does that look like for me to be a good friend and family member, loved one for you while you navigate this process? And it might just be for you to just be and be you and be in the space with me and
Mhm.
spend time with me. Don't change anything. That might be it too.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to ask you three questions really, really quick. Someone said, how do they make an appointment with you?
Okay, you can go to purposejoy.org, or you can email me shekinahjoy@purposejoy.org, and we can get you set up.
Okay. And we'll put that out there when we put out the slides that you shared. And then also, what are some signs that we need to take a break or step back from certain activities to prioritize our mental health?
So remember when we talked earlier about the self-care part and the taking inventory
Mhm.
and checking in with yourself? When is the last time you asked yourself how you were doing? And if the
Mhm.
answer is not too hot, give yourself a nice 1 to 10. If the answer is
Mhm.
not too good, I'm feeling at a good 2. Maybe it's time for you to go home and take a nap. Maybe it's time for you to go relax for a second. Maybe you need to take a break. But giving yourself those consistent check-ins, checking in with
Mhm.
yourself in that way. If you think of yourself as like almost like a child, you would make sure, are you hungry? Do you need to eat? Have you used the bathroom? That same type of care and attention we give to them is the type of care and attention we got to give to ourselves.
Okay. And then our last question, how can we identify triggers that negatively impact our mental health, and what can we do to manage those triggers? You recognize the triggers, and then how do you manage them?
I love that. Okay, so I think number one is if you're identifying certain triggers, see what's in your control and what's out of your control. And I think that's a big part that we kind of mess up on. If you're noticing that there's something that's happening that's impacting you negatively, if it's friends, if it's conversations you're having, it's certain places that you're going, do you have control to be in or out of that space, right? And if you don't have control, then how can you create for yourself, again, your coping strategies within that space, and partnering with a mental health professional to see what those coping strategies may be if you can't navigate them. There's some circumstances, unfortunately, where people are stuck living in a home with people that trigger them, or are stuck at a job or at spaces that trigger them, and they may struggle to figure out what that looks like for them as far as self-care and navigating certain coping strategies for themselves. So at that point, partner with a mental health professional and see what that's supposed to look like for you. But I think the biggest step and the hardest part for everyone is identifying those triggers, and you've done a good like 60% of the work at that point.
Mm-hmm. Well, Shekinah, I thought you did an awesome job on today. I've truly enjoyed this session. Ladies, I know you enjoyed it as well. Remember, our overall theme is My Story Isn't Over Yet. And the reason we're saying that is because even in dealing with mental illness or mental health matters, your story is not over yet. The key to life is not stopping where you are, but understanding that it's a process and you can get through even mental health disorder, whether it's anxiety, whether it's depression, whether it's an eating disorder, whatever it is, you can get through it. Your story is not over yet. God has not completed his assignment and his purpose in you. So you cannot quit. You cannot walk out on this. You can get through any type of mental disorder. Your story isn't over. I saw someone type in Shekinah. They said, how can I get one of those shirts pastor's wearing? Listen, I'm wearing them all week because we're going to have them available on Sunday. We wanted to kind of end and bring everything together. After we've talked for 4 days, talking about your story isn't over, we wanted to put it together on a t-shirt where you wear this and you remind yourself, no matter where you are in the process, it's just that. It's a process. God knows the end and he knows what he's put in you, and he's interested in bringing everything he put in you out of you. I was praying this morning, Shekinah, and I just said to the Lord, I said, I don't want to leave anything on the table. I want to receive, and I do receive all that you've given me, and I receive all that you've assigned my hands to do. I want everything that Jesus paid for, purchase for me. I want all of it. And you should be the same. You should not finish until your story ends, until it says the end, until you close your eyes. There's more that God wants to do in you. So real quickly, I want to give away our prize today. So listen. Today, Shekinah shared 5 things with us, 5 points she shared. The first person to put 2 of those 5 points, type them in now. You're going to be the winner of our $100 giveaway today. Remember, she shared 5 points. I want to see who's the first person. We're looking. Who's going to be 5? Who's going to give me 2 of the 5 points? 2 of the 5 points. Okay, I see 1, but you got to give me 2 of them. You got to give me 2 of them. I saw someone type in 1, but you got to add the second one. Listen, you typing in 1, you got to give me 2 of the 5. Okay, Kanisha Lewis, you are the winner today. Kanisha Lewis said self-care and coping strategies. That's correct. Kanisha Lewis, thank you so much for being our winner today. $100 prize. I see them all coming in now, but Kanisha Lewis was our winner today. She said that we have to address the stigma, self-care. We have to deal with shame and guilt, coping strategies, faith and mental health. And really, if you wanted to say another one, was resources. So she shared all of those things. So Kanisha Lewis, you are our winner today. What I'd like for you to do, you can call the ministry at 205-425-4735. Give us your name and give us some information about you so that you can tell us whether you want to come by. But if you're not here locally, then give us an address and we will mail that to you. Kanisha Lewis, you are our winner. Now, I'm going to ask you to call in about 5 minutes because I want to go up front. I'm going to ask you a couple questions to make sure you are the Kanisha Lewis that we should be sending this prize guys too. So thank you all, ladies, for so much for joining. You don't want to miss tomorrow. Tomorrow is my friend, Pastor Cynthia Brazelton. She and I got a chance to talk last night for a few minutes about, does that P31 woman exist? She's ready, more than capable, to minister to you guys tomorrow. She's going to be phenomenal. You don't want to miss it. So please join me. I've been saying, grab your lunch and get online, share it with your family, your friends. And it doesn't have to be just a ladies session. Men, you're welcome to join us too, because you're going to learn something. But I encourage you to join me tomorrow. Pastor Cynthia Brazelton, Victory Christian Ministries International. Does the P31 woman exist? I'll let her answer that question on tomorrow. Shekinah, thank you so much for joining. Phenomenal job. Hats off to you for such a wonderful job. We love you, and we will put your information out there so people can follow up with you. Okay. Thank you all. Have a great rest of the day, and I'll see you tomorrow at 12 o'clock noon.